The fridge light blinked on as my daughter-in-law said sweetly, "Don't forget to finish the leftovers," and walked out. Still, I opened the top shelf where the container marked for her only was half hidden behind expired milk. As I peeled back the lid, a sharp metallic smell rose, acidic, like something meant to rot slowly. While her voice echoed in the hallway, I spotted the handwriting, not my son's but hers, and not the first time. The same woman who called me mom at dinner was feeding me scraps with a warning label. That's when I packed every container, drove to the clinic, and filed the police report in my maiden name. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. I woke up to the wrong ceiling. For a moment, I reached across the bed for my husband the way I did for 42 years. My hand met cool, empty sheets, and the hum of someone else's refrigerator reminded me, Caleb's duplex, not my house, temporary, helping with the baby while my son worked too many shifts. That was the story we all agreed on. It was barely light outside, just a gray line over the rooftops when I shuffled into the kitchen. Denver mornings always look a little hungover, like the sky hasn't had its coffee yet. I started the pot, found the pan, cracked eggs into a bowl. My body remembered every motion from 3 decades in a school cafeteria: move quiet, move fast, make sure everyone else eats first. I was scrambling the eggs when I heard footsteps. "Morning," I said without turning, already smiling for Caleb. "Morning," Brianna's voice answered instead, flat, awake in that too bright way. She crossed the kitchen in her robe and slippers, phone in one hand, pen in the other. Without looking at me, she peeled a sticky note off a little pastel stack and scribbled something quick. The marker squeaked. She slapped the note down on the counter next to the stove. "Don't forget to finish the leftovers in the fridge," she said, like she was narrating a cooking show. "We don't waste here." I looked at the neon square. Her loopy handwriting stared back at me. "Finish the leftovers," underlined twice. "I was going to make Caleb a fresh plate before his shift," I said lightly. "He needs something that'll stick." "You can," she said, pouring coffee into a tall tumbler. "Just make sure anything that's already open gets eaten today. I've been really intentional about reducing food waste. It's kind of my thing online." Her smile was for the phone, not for me. Caleb rushed in a minute later, half-buttoned uniform, hair damp. He kissed my cheek, shoveled in eggs, thanked me twice. His hand landed inches from the sticky note and never saw it. "You okay staying with Eli, Mom? I owe you," he said, already backing toward the door. "I'm fine," I said. "Go." The door closed, and with it went the only person in this house who still remembered me as more than free help. Brianna rinsed her cup, eyes scanning the counters. "There are crumbs," she said lightly. "Ants are a thing here, and I kind of need this kitchen camera ready." I wiped the crumbs, then wiped again. When she finally disappeared down the hall, the kitchen went quiet. The note glared up at me. I pressed my palm flat against the cool counter, then did what I was told. I opened the fridge. Behind the neat rows of labeled containers, something thick and out of place was wedged in the back, just far enough that I had to reach in, fingers brushing cold plastic, to touch it. Cold air spilled over my hands as I leaned into the fridge, the rubber seal sighing shut against my shoulder. Brianna's fridge looked like one of her videos, everything stacked, lined, curated. Glass containers in rows, matching lids, little chalk labels, veggie bake, quinoa bowl, chicken soup. Even the yogurt cups were turned so the logos faced forward like they were smiling for a picture. I started with the top shelf because that's what she'd want, orderly, me playing along. I checked dates, lifted lids, stirred things that had congealed overnight. It wasn't that anything was rotten, it was that nothing in here looked like food my family used to eat. It all felt performative, pretty but a little cold, like the kitchen. I moved a container of roasted vegetables and another of something green and earnest that smelled like lemon and grass. Behind them, pressed against the back wall, was that shape I'd felt earlier, a corner of something that didn't belong in a refrigerator at all. I frowned and shifted a stack of Tupperware to the side. There it was, a manila folder, the cheap kind, edges curling slightly from the moisture, wedged flat against the back like someone had slid it in quickly and hoped it would disappear. What on earth, I muttered. My first thought was ordinary, rational. Caleb must have thrown it in there by mistake, hands full, distracted mail. ND groceries in at the same time. I could picture it easily, him balancing Eli, a bag of food, an armful of envelopes, dropping something where it didn't belong. It was the kind of small chaos I'd rescued him from his whole life. Careful not to drip anything on it, I wiped my fingers on a dish towel and pulled the folder free. It was heavier than I expected, warped slightly from the cold. There, in the upper corner, written in block letters with a black pen I recognized from the little cup by the entryway. Helen Porter. Not Mom, not Mrs. Porter, just my full name printed like a label on a file at a dentist's office. A strange chill that had nothing to do with the fridge ran down my spine. Why would my folder be in here? I set it on the counter next to the sticky note about leftovers, and for a moment the contrast made me dizzy, neon yellow and casual orders next to Manila and my full name. I opened the clasp. A stack of envelopes slid out, most were already opened, edges slit cleanly with something sharper than fingers. A few were still sealed, their corners slightly bent like they'd been carried around, shoved, handled. My heart started a slow, heavy thud in my chest. The first envelope on top was from my insurance company. The logo was familiar, too familiar after the last few years of my husband's life. I picked it up, feeling the old, familiar tightness in my throat. The window on the front showed my name. Mr. and Mrs. had been crossed out months ago, just Mrs. now. The address was my little house, the one I was still paying taxes on even as I slept in a guest room that smelled like someone else's laundry detergent. The postmark on the corner said it had been mailed almost a month ago. I didn't have to count the weeks, the date lodged in my brain like a splinter. 3 days before I'd moved in here with my overnight bag and my box of pill bottles. I swallowed hard and tore it open. Insurance notice past due. I read the words once, twice, they blurred at the edges. The amount wasn't catastrophic, but it wasn't small either. The kind of thing I would have called about immediately, worked out, arranged a payment plan for. I'd spent my entire adult life juggling due dates, keeping our life stitched together with calendars and careful phone calls. Except I'd never seen this. I put the letter down very carefully, like it might break. The next envelope was from the clinic that had done my last round of tests. The front was stamped in red, important medical information enclosed. My fingerprints left faint streaks on the paper. I stared at it, my mind tried to explain it away. Maybe the mail had been forwarded late, maybe someone at the post office misrouted it, maybe. But the return address sticker had a little yellow forwarding label slapped over it, with Caleb's duplex address printed clearly. The date on that label was 2 weeks old. I hadn't gotten any mail here, not a single piece. Brianna had told me everything was still catching up. I felt my stomach twist. Another envelope, this one from the dentist I saw once a year whether I needed it or not because it was cheaper than new teeth. Another from the utility company, another from the hospital billing office. All with my name. All with dates spanning the last 6 weeks. I flipped through them, the edges rasping against my thumb, faster now, some opened, some not, some stamped second notice. The room tilted a fraction to the left. Someone had been getting my mail, someone had been opening my mail, and someone had decided my medical notices were better off here. In the back of a refrigerator, behind quinoa and casseroles and a sticky note telling me not to waste. I picked up the clinic envelope again, the one stamped important. My hand trembled. The seal was still intact, unbroken, like a tiny promise. I slid my finger under the flap and started to tear, then froze. From down the hall, I heard the soft creak of a door and the faint hush of footsteps on carpet growing closer. The footsteps faded past the kitchen and into Eli's room. Door hinge, soft murmur, not coming toward me. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding and looked back down at the envelope in my hands. The red stamp "Important medical information enclosed" seemed louder than any footstep. "Okay," I whispered to myself. "Okay, Helen, just open it." The paper resisted for a second, then gave way with a dry tear. A single sheet slid into my palm. Clinic letterhead, my name, my birth date, and then, "Your recent diagnostic tests have shown abnormalities that require immediate follow-up." My eyes stuck on abnormalities. The word had a ghost behind it, the oncologist from 3 years ago saying abnormal cells like he was describing a smudge on a window instead of my husband's future. I read the next lines twice. "We have attempted to reach you by phone on multiple occasions without success. Please contact our office as soon as possible to schedule an appointment to discuss our results and potential treatment options. Attempts multiple, no success." My heart thudded once, hard and hollow. Treatment options. At 69, those two words covered a whole landscape of things I did not want to revisit. I forced myself to look at the date at the top of the page. 3 weeks ago. I did the math automatically. 3 weeks of me cooking in this kitchen, wiping these counters, tucking Eli into his naps. 3 weeks of waking up in their guest room and telling myself I was lucky to have family. 3 weeks of not knowing there might be something quietly ticking inside my own body. The edges of my vision tightened. I pulled out a chair and sat down before the dizziness could decide for me. 3 weeks. My phone was in the pocket of my cardigan, hanging on the back of the chair. I fumbled it out, thumbs clumsy, and opened my missed calls. There they were, the clinic's number over and over. Unknown, 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 6 times. Brianna's voice floated back to me from last week, light and breezy as she wiped down this same counter. "You don't have to answer random numbers, Helen. It's always spam. If it's important, they'll leave a message." They had. 4 voicemails waited in my inbox. I hit play on the most recent, holding the phone between my ear and shoulder while still staring at the letter. "Hello, this is a courtesy call for Helen Porter regarding your recent test results. Please contact." I ended it before it could finish. The others would say the same. I could hear it already, the careful tone, the polite urgency. My gaze dropped to the bottom corner of the page. The address window showed my little house. Over it, a small yellow forwarding label with Caleb's duplex printed clear and neat. Someone had peeled it, smoothed it, handled it. And then someone had put it in a folder with my name and slid it behind leftovers. My mind tried to reach for the generous version of events. Maybe Brianna had gathered my mail so it wouldn't get lost. Maybe she meant to hand it to me and got sidetracked. Except I'd watched her walk to that mailbox every afternoon with Eli in the stroller, watched her flip through envelopes on the way back, watched her tear some in half over the recycling bin inside the front door. "Nothing for you," she'd told me, casual, dropping flyers into the blue bin. "They still think you live at the old place." I looked at the stack of envelopes on the table, insurance, utilities, bills, all with my name, all dating back 6 weeks, all funneled into a folder I'd only found because she wanted me to finish the leftovers. A pattern started to come into focus. If Brianna decided what I saw, she also decided what I didn't. If I didn't know about late notices, missed appointments, abnormalities, then I was the kind of old woman who forgot, the kind who got confused, the kind people talked over. The kind you could manage. My stomach turned. The kitchen felt colder, like the open fridge door was still wide even though I knew I'd shut it. I gathered the letters back into the folder with shaky hands, a new heat rising under my skin, fear and something sharper, older. I needed to call the clinic. I needed to call someone who didn't live in this house. I had just closed the folder, fingers still resting on my printed name, when a shadow fell across the table and a familiar, manicured hand reached calmly for the manila edge. Her fingers curled around the folder like they had every right to it. "Oh, there it is," Brianna said lightly, sliding it out from under my hands before I could tighten my grip. I was wondering where that went. My palms stayed flat on the table, empty. I watched her, not the folder. "That's my mail," I said. My voice sounded smaller in the big, bright kitchen than it had in my head. She flipped the cover open with her thumb, eyes skimming the envelopes. Yes, I know, she gave a quick, practiced laugh. It all got misdelivered. I've been trying to organize it for you. Misdelivered, the word landed too smoothly, like it had been rehearsed. Forwarded, I corrected, nodding at the yellow sticker on the clinic letter, to this address. She barely glanced at it. Right, but it showed up with our stuff. Caleb tossed it on the counter and I just scooped everything up so it wouldn't get lost. I was going to sit down with you and go through it all together. She lifted her eyes to mine, softening her face like she was posing. You know, help. There was no apology in her voice, no embarrassment, just the measured calm of someone managing a situation. You left it in the refrigerator, I said. She smiled wider, like we were sharing a little joke. Yeah, okay, that was dumb. I put it there while I was putting groceries away and then Eli started screaming and she rolled her eyes at herself. Mom brain, it's real. Her voice never shook, not once. I tapped the clinic letter poking up from the stack. This one is 3 weeks old. For half a heartbeat, something hard fly. Sea curd in her eyes, then it vanished. I saw it was medical, she said, lowering her tone to something hushed and tender. And I didn't want you to panic if it turned out to be nothing. I thought I'd wait until we could all talk about it together. You've just been so overwhelmed. She let that word hang between us. I'm trying to protect you, Helen. Before I could answer, the front door opened with a blast of cold air. Forgot my radio, Caleb's voice rang out. Brianna moved like someone hit a switch. The tension smoothed off her face, her shoulders relaxed, and she pivoted toward the doorway with a bright, buoyant smile. In here, she called. He came in breathless, scanning the counter. Man, I'd lose my head. Hey, Mom. He squeezed my shoulder in passing, then kissed Brianna's temple. You okay? You looked wiped earlier. I'm fine now, she said, pressing lightly against his chest with the hand still holding my folder. I was just helping your mom with some of her paperwork. It's a lot for her. Her voice dipped just enough that he had to lean in to hear. Some of it's kind of scary. Caleb's gaze snapped to me. Scary how? I could feel the letter burning inside that folder like a coal. I'm okay, I said quickly, just catching up on things I missed with the move. Brianna tilted her head, concern painted perfectly across her features. She got a little shaken, she murmured. We'll go through it when you're off tonight, babe, you're already late. He checked his watch, swore under his breath, and grabbed his radio. We'll talk later, Mom. Call me if you need anything, okay? I will, I lied. The door shut again, silence slid back over the kitchen. Brianna's smile dropped a shade, not disappearing, just tightening. You can't just pull things out like that without me, she said quietly. It's too much information all at once, you'll mix things up. I've been handling my own life for almost 70 years, I said. I could hear the steel in it, surprising even myself. And now you have help, she replied, eyes cooling. Let me do what Caleb trusts me to do. She hugged the folder to her side. I'll put this somewhere safe. We'll talk when everyone's calm. She turned and walked away before I could answer, her robe swishing, the office door clicking shut down the hall. I stood there, the kitchen suddenly feeling like a stage that had gone dark after the show. Then I went to my room. I closed the guest room door and leaned against it, letting the quiet settle. My suitcase sat half unpacked at the foot of the bed like it couldn't decide if I lived here or not. On the nightstand next to my pill bottles was my phone, and tucked under it, a worn business card I hadn't thought about since the funeral. Samuel WLLS ESQ. I slid the card out and held it between my fingers, my pulse steadying. If Brianna wanted to treat me like I couldn't manage my own life, that was one story. I realized, staring at that card, that I didn't have to play the part she'd written for me. I didn't call Samuel. Not yet. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, Samuel's card in my hand, listening to the house. Brianna's voice floated faintly down the hall as she filmed something. Eli fussed, then quieted. Life went on like nothing had happened. The next morning, the house finally gave me a crack. Caleb slipped out before dawn. An hour later, Brianna appeared in the doorway in leggings and a cropped sweatshirt, stroller bumped against her hip. Mommy and me yoga, she said. We'll be gone a few hours, there's soup in the fridge if you want it, and remember, label anything you open, okay? She didn't wait for my answer, door lock, silence. I stood there for a full minute, my pulse too loud in the quiet kitchen. Then I walked to the fridge. The stainless steel door reflected me, small, blurred. I pulled it open. Cold air rushed my face. Everything on the shelves looked as perfect as ever, but I wasn't interested in the pretty rose this time. I crouched, knees popping, and yanked the bottom drawer all the way out. Greens, cut fruit off to the side. Behind it, in the hollow at the very back, was a thick bundle of envelopes, cinched with a red rubber band. I reached in with numb fingers and pulled them out. My name on every one. Medical bills stamped past due, insurance letters warning of possible lapse, dentist reminders escalating from its time to final notice before collections. All forwarded here, all cold, all hidden. My hands shook. As I flipped through them, a scrap of notepad paper fluttered out and landed on the floor. Same pastel paper as her kitchen notes, crumpled once then smoothed. On it, in Brianna's looping handwriting. She'll get confused anyway. The room tilted. Every little moment snapped into focus at once, her corrections, her reminders, her soft comments about me being overwhelmed, the way she answered questions for me on speakerphone. It wasn't kindness, it was groundwork. If I missed mail and appointments, I wasn't being sabotaged, I was slipping. The kind of old woman people decide things for. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called the one person who'd never treated me like glass. Nora picked up on the second ring. I told her, the fridge, the drawer, the note. When I finished, she was quiet for a beat. Then get your documents out of that house, tonight. My throat tightened. Nora, she's already taken some. I don't care, she cut in. Anything you can get your hands on, medical money, legal, you walk it out with you. Smile, nod, play the sweet confused lady if you have to, but you get your name back in your own hands before she takes it from you on paper. I looked at the envelopes, at the ugly little sentence still burning in my vision. Okay, I whispered. Call me when you've got them, she said. Then we're calling someone who knows exactly how to deal with this. The line went dead. I rubber banded the stack with new care, tucking it against my chest. I just slipped it into a grocery bag under the sink when I heard a car door slam outside, and Brianna's laugh, bright and close, coming up the walk. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that little scrap of paper. She'll get confused anyway. Around midnight, I heard Caleb come home, low voices through the wall, water running, a door shutting, normal sounds of a young marriage. If they'd walked down the hall and opened my door, they would have found me lying on top of the covers, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling with Samuel's card in my hand. I waited until the house fell into that deep, steady quiet where even the baby monitor was just a soft hiss. Then I dialed. Samuel Wells, he answered, voice gravelly with the late hour. Samuel, it's Helen Porter, I said, my throat felt tight. He took a beat, then his tone sharpened. Helen, are you all right? No, I said honestly, not really. I told him the bare bones, the forwarded mail I'd never seen, the medical letter, the bills, the stash behind the fridge drawer. I didn't trust my voice with Brianna's note, not yet. I just said, there's writing about me being confused. He listened without interrupting, same as he had when we'd sat here and talked about ventilators and DNRs for my husband. When I finished, the silence on his end was heavy. All right, he said finally, I want you to bring every document you found to my office, forwarded mail, bills, anything with your name. Can you do that without raising suspicion? I think so, I said. I pictured the crinkled grocery bag under the sink. I've already gathered a lot of it. Good, he said. Come tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. If anyone asks, you're checking in with the lawyer who handled your husband's estate, that's all. The lie was simple enough to carry. Okay, I said, I can do that. And Helen, his voice softened, don't confront anyone tonight, don't tip your hand. I won't, I said. See you in the morning. When I hung up, my heart was still racing, but the panic had edges now, a shape, a plan. At 7, I was already dressed. I moved quietly through the kitchen the way you do when a baby's asleep, The house smelled like coffee and baby detergent. I wrote a quick note on the pad by the coffee maker, running a few errands, back later. H. Technically true. The grocery bag rustled as I slid it out from the dark space under the sink. I peeked inside, envelopes banded together, clinic letter, insurance notices, the dentist reminders, my name in a dozen fonts. I tucked the bag inside one of Brianna's reusable totes from the hook by the door. The irony wasn't lost on me. Good vibes only in big cheerful letters on the outside, my quietly sabotaged life on the inside. Caleb's car was gone, Brianna's door was closed. The baby monitor on the counter showed Eli still a limp bundle of sleep. For one moment, guilt pricked behind my ribs. I was leaving without telling them where, trusting that an hour away wouldn't break anything vital. Then I remembered the cold feel of those envelopes. I slipped out, closing the door until the latch whispered shut. Samuel's office was across town in one of those low brick buildings that always smells faintly like copy paper and coffee. I'd stood in this parking lot holding my husband's hand once. This time I held a bag instead. The receptionist recognized me. "Mrs. Porter, good morning." Her smile was kind, not pitying, and something in my chest unknotted a little. Samuel met me halfway down the hall. "Helen," he said, offering his hand, "come on back." His office looked exactly the same, dark wood desk, wall of law books, never quite thriving plant in the corner. I set the toad on the desk, suddenly self-conscious about the crinkling plastic inside. "This is what I could get without her noticing," I said. "That's plenty," he assured me. He pulled the grocery bag out and began laying everything on the desk in neat lines. He didn't rush, he handled each envelope like it mattered. Insurance warnings, past due stamps, the clinic letter with abnormalities, the yellow forwarding labels, all with Caleb's address. I watched his eyes move, cataloging. Halfway through the stack, I slid the small notepad scrap toward him, face down. "There's also this," I said. He turned it over, read the 7 words, and went very still. His jaw tightened, just enough that someone who didn't know him might have missed it. He set the note beside the medical letter and leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. The friendly, approachable lawyer I remembered faded at the edges, replaced by the version of him that sat across from hospital counsel and didn't blink. "This isn't lost mail," he said. "It's a pattern, controlled flow of information specifically around your finances and health." "Controlled," I repeated. The word made my skin crawl. "It appears someone in that household is intercepting and managing your mail in a way that could make you look negligent," he said, "especially if they're also telling other people you're confused." I thought of Brianna's gentle corrections, her staged sighs, her little looks at Caleb. It's a lot for her. "What does that mean for me?" I asked, legally. "Right now," he tapped the envelopes, "it means you're at risk of decisions being made about you without your full knowledge. Guardianship petitions, financial control, medical proxies, these things can move fast if there's a paper trail that suggests you're not keeping up." My stomach flipped. "I've paid my bills my whole life," I said quietly. "I took care of my husband until the end. I'm not." "I know you're not," he cut in, gentle but firm, "but on paper someone is trying to write a different story." He let that sink in, then met my eyes, his expression more personal now, less professional. "Helen," he said slowly, "I have to ask you 2 things, don't answer quickly." I nodded, fingers clenched in my lap. "First, do you want to keep living in that house?" he asked. The automatic answer, "I'm helping with the baby," rose to my lips. I swallowed it. "I don't know," I admitted. "It doesn't feel like my home." He nodded once, like he'd expected that. "Second," he said, and this time his voice was softer, the question heavier, "do you feel safe there?" My mouth opened. Safe, under the same roof as someone who hid my test results behind leftovers and wrote me off on a scrap of paper. I thought of Eli's tiny fingers wrapped around mine, of Caleb's tired smile, of Brianna's cool eyes above a warm smile. I started, and for the first time since I'd found that folder, I wasn't sure what the truthful answer would cost me. Samuel's question hung between us. "Do you feel safe there?" I couldn't answer it cleanly, so I answered a different one. I need to know what's going on with my body first, I said, before anybody decides anything for me. He nodded. Then call the clinic, now schedule the follow-up, and when you're there, tell them why you didn't respond sooner, ask them to put it in your chart. So I did. My fingers shook a little as I dialed from my cell, the letter propped in front of me on his desk. Summit Medical Group, the woman answered. This is Helen Porter, I said. I received a letter about abnormal results. I'd like to schedule whatever follow-up I'm supposed to have. There was typing on the other end, a soft, surprised "oh." Yes, Mrs. Porter, we've been trying to reach you. Your doctor wanted you in as soon as possible. We have an 8:15 tomorrow morning. I'll be there, I said. When I hung up, Samuel wrote the time neatly on a yellow pad and tore the page off for me like a small contract between us. Remember, he said, tell them exactly why you didn't come sooner. The next morning, I slipped out of the house before the sky was fully awake. No note this time, just my purse, my keys, and the quiet hope that one early appointment wouldn't bring the whole fragile arrangement crashing down. The clinic waiting room smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee. I checked in, watched the receptionist's eyes flick over her screen. We did send several notices, she murmured, then more gently, but you're here now, that's what matters. In the exam room, sitting on crinkling paper, I felt 70 and 17 at the same time. Dr. Harris came in with my chart on a tablet. Mrs. Porter, he said, I'm very glad you called, we were concerned. I didn't know, I said, about any of this. And then I told him in plain words about the forwarded mail I hadn't seen, the phone calls I'd missed on someone else's advice, the folder that turned up in the back of a refrigerator. His jaw tightened, he turned to the computer and began typing. I'm documenting this, he said, that there was third-party interference with your mail and calls. Any delay in follow-up was not your choice. Paper cutting both ways, just like Samuel said. As for the labs, he continued, facing me again, they're not something we ignore. I want more imaging and more blood work. It doesn't mean we're looking at the same thing your husband had, but it does mean we pay attention. Am I dying? I asked before I could stop myself. Everyone is slowly, he said with a small, sad smile. Right now you're a woman with concerning labs who showed up. That gives us options. The nurse drew my blood, handed me a stack of printouts and appointments. At the front desk, the receptionist said, if we call from an unknown number, please answer, all right. I will, I said, and I meant it in a way that had nothing to do with phones. Outside, the cold air hit my face like a slap and a blessing. I sat in my car, papers in my lap, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks, not just fear but anger, clear, steady anger. If Brianna had hidden this, what else had she quietly tucked out of sight? The bank logo at the top of one bill flashed in my mind. Instead of turning toward home, I turned the wheel the other way toward the nearest branch and whatever I was about to find out there. The bank looked ordinary, glass doors, faded posters about savings goals, but my hands were sweating on the steering wheel like I was about to confess to a crime instead of ask a question. Inside, a young woman smiled from the welcome desk. Hi there, how can I help you? I got an alert, I said, pulling the wrinkled letter from my purse. About my checking account, I don't understand it. She skimmed it and her smile tightened. Let me have one of our bankers take a look. Do you have your card and ID? A man in a navy tie appeared. Mrs. Porter, I'm Dan, come on back and we'll see what's going on. His office was small and bland, computer, fake plant, a photo of a kid in a baseball uniform. He pulled up my account, turning the screen slightly so I could see. Here we are, he said. This alert triggered because of a cash withdrawal that's larger than your usual pattern. I followed his finger down the list: groceries, pharmacy, utilities. Then one number jumped, $1,500 cash withdrawal in branch. I didn't do that, my voice landed flat between us. I haven't taken cash out in months. Dan clicked deeper. It was done here last week. He looked at me, then at my ID. Let me pull the slip. Sometimes seeing your signature helps jog the memory. He left, I stared at the picture of his son and thought of Caleb at that age, how I used to tuck his allowance into an envelope with his name carefully written on it. Dan returned with a printout and laid it on the desk. My name, the date, the amount. And at the bottom, my signature or a clumsy imitation of it. It had my loops, my slant, but the bones were wrong, the H hunched, the P stretched too tall like someone studying me from a distance. That's not mine, I said. It's close, but it's not. He compared it to the one on my license. Side by side, the differences weren't subtle anymore. I'd like my manager to take a look, he said quietly. Maria, the branch manager, studied the paper, then me. Mrs. Porter, were you here on the 12th, around lunchtime? No, I said. I was watching my grandson. She exhaled. We have cameras on the teller line. With your permission, I'd like to review that footage with you. In a small side room, she queued up the video. Grainy footage flickered, people in coats, tellers at their stations. Here's the 12th. 12:15, 12:17, she murmured. The doors opened. There she was. High ponytail, camel coat, black leggings, stroller pushed in front of her like a prop. That's my daughter-in-law, I heard myself say. On screen, Brianna went straight to the teller, smiling, talking, handing something over. No older woman beside her, no me. Maria paused and looked at me. She came in with your card, she said. She told us you were in the car, not feeling well, that she was helping you because you'd been having trouble keeping track of things. Her voice softened. She claimed she was helping you. The room shrank, my ribcage felt too tight for my heart. Helping? Mrs. Porter, Maria said gently, will open a fraud claim and freeze your card right away. But before we go any further, I need to ask you something very seriously. She held my gaze. Do you feel safe going back to where she is? Maria's question followed me all the way back to Samuel's office. Do you feel safe going back to where she is? I didn't, not with my signature forged and my money in her wallet. Samuel took one look at my face and cleared his desk. I dropped the bank folder down between us. She used my card, I said, told them I was in the car, said I've been having trouble keeping track of things. He went through the pages slowly, withdrawal slip, fraud affidavit, Maria's written statement, the grainy still shot of Brianna at the teller with Eli's stroller beside her. With each document, his jaw set a little tighter. This is elder financial exploitation, he said finally. She's not just hiding mail, she's building a record that you're incompetent. The word stung, but it fit exactly where that little note in the fridge had landed. What do I do? I asked. He pulled out a fresh stack of forms. First, we lock down your decisions as yours, on paper. This is a new durable power of attorney. You remain in full control. If you ever need help, it names me as a backup, no one else. It also revokes any informal help anyone might claim to have. In Brianna, I asked. He slid over another document. This is a written notice to your bank, your doctors, anywhere you choose, that she has no authority to access your information or act for you. We'll attach Maria's statement and the clinic documentation. Anyone who looks will see a pattern and your response to it. We went through page after page. I initialed paragraphs, signed my name while the notary stamped and sealed. With every signature, I felt something shift, like I was slowly dragging my life back onto my side of the line. When we were done, Samuel folded his hands. Helen, he said quietly, these protections help, but they're not enough if you stay in that house. If she's already intercepting mail and forging your name, the next step is trying to convince a court you can't manage alone. I can't just leave, I whispered. There's Eli and Caleb. You are not abandoning your family, he said. You're removing yourself from a situation where you're being harmed. You can still see them from somewhere safe. He held my gaze. You need to leave that house. One name came to mind. Nora, I said, my neighbor. Call her, he said, today. Nora didn't even hesitate. Guest room's ready, she said. Tell me when to pick you up. That night, Brianna took Eli to some collab dinner. Caleb texted that he was on another double. The duplex went still. I packed fast, clothes, medicines, the photo of my husband, Samuel's folder, the bank papers, everything with my name on it. All of it into the same cheerful tote, good vibes only. On the counter, I left one line for my son. Staying with Nora for a bit, I'm safe, I'll call you tomorrow. Love, Mom. Nora's Subaru rolled up without a honk. We loaded my bags in silence. You sure? She asked, hand on the gearshift. I looked back at the house where my mail had been buried behind leftovers and my name had walked into a bank without me. Yes, I said, I'm done letting her write my story. As we pulled away, my phone lit up in my lap, Brianna calling, then Caleb right after, both names flashing over and over, chasing the version of me they thought was still sitting by their fridge. We picked a place that belonged to neither of us, a small coffee shop off Colfax with wobbly tables and burnt espresso. Caleb was already there, uniform, pants, jacket, badge clipped at his hip. He stood when he saw me, relief and anger fighting on his face. Hey Mom, he said, you really moved out. I did, I sat, and before you say anything I need you to listen, all the way through. Something in my voice must have landed. He shut his mouth and nodded. I set the good vibes only tote in my lap and pulled out the first bundle, the rubber-banded stack of envelopes. I laid them between us. These were forwarded to your address, I said. I found them behind the bottom drawer of your fridge. He frowned, picking one up. Insurance, red past due, clinic letterhead, Denties. T reminders. His eyes skimmed the dates. Mom, these are weeks old, he said. Why didn't you? Because I never saw them, I cut in. Brianna told me there was nothing for me yet, every day. The line between his brows deepened. She said the mail got all mixed up with the forwarding, that she was sorting it so you wouldn't get overwhelmed. I didn't respond, I just pulled out the next piece, the withdrawal slip Maria had printed. I slid it onto the pile. He glanced down, then froze. That's your name, he said, and that's not my signature, I said. Your bank has camera footage of Brianna at the teller with Eli. She told them I was in the car and not feeling well. She took out $1,500. He stared like he could change the numbers by looking harder. His thumb rubbed the edge of the paper raw. She wouldn't do that, he whispered. She said she only used your card for grocery pickups you asked for. I didn't argue. I pulled out my phone, opened the photos, pushed it toward him. First picture, the manila folder on his counter. Second, the letters spread out, my name repeated. Third, the cold little hollow behind the fridge drawer, envelopes lined up like teeth. Last, the scrap of pastel note paper, her looping handwriting clear. She'll get confused anyway. His eyes filled so fast it shocked me. He pressed his knuckles to his mouth, staring at that sentence. She wrote that, I said quietly, while she hid my mail, while she told other people I was slipping. He dropped his hand, looking wrecked. She told me you'd been repeating things, missing pills, mixing up dates. His voice cracked. She said your doctor was worried about your memory, Mom. I believed her, I thought. He trailed off, swallowed hard. I thought she was protecting you from yourself. I let that sit. The hiss of the espresso machine filled the space between us. Finally he looked up, shame burning in his eyes. That's not the only thing she's done in your name, he said. There's something I have to tell you, and you're going to hate me for not seeing it sooner. He was still staring at the photos on my phone when he asked it, voice raw. So you'll come back now? We'll kick her out. I'll fix this wheel. I'm not moving back in, Caleb. He blinked like he'd misheard. What? I'm not going back to that house, I repeated. Not to be watched, not to have my life filtered through her version of me. His whole face crumpled. But where are you supposed to? With myself, I said. I met with Samuel again. We're putting things in writing. I'm moving into an independent senior place in Lakewood next week. My lease is already signed. He stared like I'd told him I was moving to Mars. You'd rather live with strangers than your own family. I'd rather live where my mail goes from the box to my hands, I said. Where if I forget something, it's an honest mistake, not an opportunity. His eyes glossed over. He scrubbed his palms down his face. I thought I was helping you, he whispered, letting her handle things. I didn't want to pick sides. I didn't want more fights. You picked a side by not picking one, I said gently. Your silence helped her. He actually flinched, shoulders shaking. I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't even know how to start fixing this. You start by seeing it, I said. and by not letting her do it again. I pulled Samuel's new letter from my tote and slid it over. He's filing this with the bank, the clinic, anyone who needs it. It says Brianna has no authority to speak for me or touch my accounts. There's a cease contact notice for anything financial. If she calls them pretending to be helpful again, they'll document it. He read the first lines, jaw tight. She's going to lose it. She already did, I said. At the bank, at the mailbox, behind the fridge. This just tells the world I'm not signing up for the show. The senior community turned out warmer than the word sounded. Beige walls, yes, but sunlight poured through my little balcony door, and Nora had already announced she'd be over every Thursday with store-bought cookies to lower the tone. Caleb helped carry the last box in, eyes roaming the small living room. It feels like you, he said quietly. That's the idea. His phone buzzed again on the counter. He didn't pick it up. I didn't have to ask. Brianna's name might as well have been printed on the screen. Samuel said the notices went out today, I reminded him. The bank, the doctors, your place, she'll know soon. Right on cue, my phone lit with a text from Samuel. Served, all filed. If she shows up angry, don't engage, call me or building security. Nora, peeking through my blinds, gave a low whistle. Speaking of. What? I asked. She tilted the slat so I could see. Down in the lot, Brianna's SUV screeched into a visitor spot, door flung wide. She climbed out fast, hair and coat flying, phone in one hand, fury written in every line of her body as she glared up at my new building and started marching for the entrance. The elevator dinged like a warning bell. Heads up, Nora muttered, still peeking through the blinds. Hurricane Bry at 12 o'clock. Caleb and I both looked down in time to see Brianna's SUV jerk into a visitor spot. She climbed out fast, hair flying, phone in one hand, a manila envelope crumpled in the other. My legal notice. The intercom buzzed, my cell lit with her name. I let both ring out. A minute later, heels hammered down the hallway and someone else's keycard beeped at the stairwell door. Then 3 sharp knocks that rattled my new door. Helen, open this right now. Old habits almost answered polite. The new part of me reached for the deadbolt instead, slid it back and opened the door only as far as the chain. Brianna's face filled the gap, flushed, wild-eyed. She shoved the envelope up like evidence. What the hell is this? I unlatched the chain and opened the door fully. If she was going to perform, she could have the whole hallway. That's a notice, I said, explaining you're no longer involved in my finances or medical care. You can't do that, she snapped, pushing past me into the apartment. You move out without a conversation, you sick a lawyer on me, you cut me off from your doctors. Do you have any idea what this makes me look like? Accurate, Nora said mildly from the love seat. She was holding her phone at a very specific angle, recording. Brianna spun on her. Put that down. Nope, Nora said, documentation is self-care. This is insane, Brianna went on, turning back to me. You're in some retirement dorm instead of home with your family. You left your grandson, you left us. You're abandoning your family because you got confused by your mail. I didn't get confused, I said, you hid it. Her voice jumped. I was protecting you. You said you get overwhelmed, you miss calls, you forget dates. You've been telling people I'm forgetful, I corrected. Banks, doctors, my son. Caleb finally stepped forward. I saw the bank footage, Bri. You told them she was in the car, you signed her name. She went still, then pasted on a softer expression, turning half toward the open doorway where a couple of curious neighbors had started to hover. I am under so much stress, she said, voice suddenly trembling. Postpartum, his schedule, her health. I've been trying to take care of everyone by myself. If I messed something up, it was because I was trying. That's not a mess up, Caleb said low, that's fraud. A man with a walker cleared his throat in the hall. Sounds like she knows exactly what she's doing, he muttered. Color flared high on Brianna's cheeks. You're really doing this, she demanded, siding with her, over your wife, over the mother of your child. I'm siding with the truth, he said, for once. Her gaze snapped back to me hard now. You can't just erase me, Helen, I'm family, you need me. I needed you to hand me my mail, I said. You couldn't manage that. The elevator dinged again. A security guard stepped out, eyes moving from Brianna's raised voice to the cluster of residents to my open door. "Ma'am," he said, looking at me, not her, "is this guest here at your invitation, or would you like her escorted out?" The security guard's question hung in the hallway. "Ma'am, is this guest here at your invitation, or would you like her escorted out?" For once, everyone was looking at me, not her. "No," I said, "she's not here by my invitation. I'd like her to leave." Brianna stared like I'd slapped her. "You're throwing me out in front of your little audience." "In front of witnesses," Nora murmured, phone still angled. The guard stayed calm. "Ma'am, we can talk in the lobby or I can involve Denver PD, your choice." Brianna's mouth twisted. "This isn't over, Helen. You think paperwork can erase me?" I didn't answer. The guard walked her to the elevator. The doors slid shut on her shout, "I hope you're happy." The man with the walker chuckled. "Welcome to the building," he said. "You fit right in." 2 days later, I was back in Samuel's office, tea cooling in my hands. "She came to the building?" he asked. "With an audience," I said. "Security made sure she left with one, too." He nodded, then pulled a new folder toward me. "You've protected the present," he said. "Now we deal with what comes next, your estate, your voice after you're not here to defend it." I thought of the old will to Caleb and spouse. That word felt like a stain now. "I don't want her anywhere near my decisions," I said. "Not while I'm breathing, not on paper after." "Then we make that explicit," he said. We drafted a formal statement, calm, factual, outlining the intercepted mail, the forged signature, the bank footage, the clinic delay. It revoked any real or implied authority for Brianna in all legal, medical, and financial matters. My healthcare proxy went to a neutral advocate from Samuel's office. Copies would go to my doctor's bank. Insurer. Then he opened the new will. "All of it goes to Caleb," he said, "only if he meets 2 conditions, counseling and separate finances from Brianna. If he doesn't, the bulk goes to the community kitchen fund you love. You choose where your work ends up, her hands or hungry ones." It was harsher than I expected. It was also exactly right. I read every line, then I signed, my real signature steady in mine. Samuel added a plain language cover letter for Caleb and one for Brianna that was even simpler. She had no role, no access, no expectation. At home, Nora and I were mid-card game when a text buzzed from Caleb, a photo of the letter. "Did you really sign this?" "Yes," I wrote. "I trust you to do the work. Either way, I'm at peace." 3 dots, then I deserve it. I've already booked a counselor. A voicemail from Brianna arrived minutes later. I didn't listen. For the first time in months, my life was mine on paper and in practice. My mail sat in a neat stack on my counter, untouched by anyone but me. There was still one place left to go, one door I hadn't walked back through since all this started. I picked up my keys, thinking of a stainless steel fridge and a yellow sticky note that used to own me. It was time to see that kitchen again, on my own terms. Caleb was waiting on the front steps when I pulled up, hands shoved into his hoodie pocket, shoulders hunched like a kid called to the principal's office. I hadn't been back to the duplex since I left with Nora. From the street, nothing had changed. Same brick, same cheap rug that Brianna once called an entryway moment. My stomach still dipped. He walked to my car before I could get out. "I'll carry everything," he said quickly. "You don't have to." "I'm capable of lifting a box, Caleb," I said. "I just need what's mine." He flinched, then nodded. "I know, He looked at me properly then, eyes rimmed red. "I am so sorry, Mom, for not seeing it, for letting her talk about you like you weren't standing right there, for making you feel like a guest." "You did hurt me," I said. "I didn't sugarcoat it." His jaw clenched. "I know, and I'm going to spend a long time making that right if you let me." "I'm letting you start," I said. "That's all I can do today." He took a breath, braced himself, and opened the front door. Inside, the house smelled like garlic and baby lotion. The TV murmured in the living room. Brianna sat on the couch, leggings and oversized sweatshirt, Eli and his bouncer at her feet. She didn't stand up. "Hi, Helen," she said to the coffee table. "Your things are boxed up in the guest room." "I'll grab them," I said. "You didn't have to make it so dramatic," she added, still not looking at me. "Lawyers, letters, it's a lot." You started a lot with the bank and my mail, I replied. This is just the paperwork catching up. Caleb shot her a warning look. She rolled her eyes and went back to pretending the TV was fascinating. The guest room was smaller than I remembered. 3 boxes sat by the closet, my name written on the lids in her rounded handwriting, a little heart over the eye. It looked like a label on a yard sale table. I opened them, books, my chipped World SOKAYESD mom mug, knitting, my winter coat. Everything was there, folded neat, impersonal. What about my papers? I asked. In your safe deposit box already, Caleb said. Samuel set it up. I didn't want any of your documents in this house. That pulled some tension out of my shoulders. Good, I said, thank you. We carried the boxes out to my trunk. It could have ended there, a practical exchange, nothing more. But I stopped in the kitchen on purpose. It was still a showroom, counter cleared, dish towel folded just so, glass containers lined up in the fridge like soldiers. I ran my hand over the cool stainless steel. This was where it started, a sticky note and a sentence that had seemed small at the time. We don't waste here. I opened the drawer beside the fridge. The pastel sticky notes were still there, pink today. I peeled one off, uncapped the black pen, and wrote in my square, no-nonsense script. I'm not your leftovers. I stuck it in the center of the fridge door, smoothing it down with my palm. It looked right there, like the last label the kitchen needed. Mom, Caleb's voice came from the doorway. You okay? Better than the last time I stood here, I said. Let's go. In the living room, I bent and kissed Eli's soft forehead. Grandma loves you, I whispered. You'll come see me soon. We've got elevators and nosy neighbors. On my way out, Brianna finally glanced over just once. You'll regret this, she said quietly, when you're old and alone. I'm already old, I said, and I'm not alone. Outside, the air felt sharper, cleaner. Caleb loaded the last box and closed my trunk. Text me when you get home, he asked, please. I will, I said, sliding into the driver's seat. My phone buzzed in my purse as I reached for the ignition. Summit. Medical group flashed across the screen, the clinic. Weeks ago, that call would have gone to voicemail, lost in someone else's story. This time, with my own sticky note still fresh on their fridge, I hit accept. Mrs. Porter, this is Dr. Harris. I was still in Caleb's driveway, engine off, one hand on the keys. Yes, I said, I'm here. I've got your follow-up results, he said. Imaging in labs, the area we were worried about, it's resolved. The repeat labs are normal. We're calling the first set a lab error and some inflammation that's cleared. I stared at the steering wheel until it blurred. So right now you're medically stable, he said. We'll keep an eye on things, but there's no sign of anything serious. The breath left me all at once. A laugh and a sob tangled in my throat. Thank you, I managed, for putting that in my chart, for everything. When the call ended, I put my head on the wheel and cried relief and something like pride. I'd brought myself to that result. No one had dragged me, no one had filtered the news. The official letter came a few days later, tucked in my lobby mailbox between coupons and a senior newsletter. I opened it at my little kitchen table in Lakewood, sun on my hands, Nora across from me, pretending not to stare. Normal, I read, normal. Nora grinned, you gonna frame that? Maybe, I said, right over the spot where my blood pressure spikes. Outside, spring finally began to mean something. My balcony filled with cheap plants in plastic pots. Nora became a permanent fixture down the hall. Caleb started showing up every Sunday, first alone, then with Eli, talking about therapy and separate accounts and hard conversations he should have had years ago. He didn't ask me to move back in, that was apology enough. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I tied on a hairnet and stood behind a steam table at the community kitchen, ladling soup for people who'd had their lives taken apart in ways that made mine look almost gentle. You're good at this, the coordinator said once. I've been feeding people my whole life, I replied. I just finally get to choose the kitchen. Some nights, I sat alone on my balcony with tea, watching the mountains go purple, thinking about the version of me Brianna had tried to build, a woman fading around the edges, grateful to be managed. She'd almost made me believe it. But then I remembered all the things she hadn't counted on: me walking into a lawyer's office, me standing in front of a bank manager saying, "That's not my signature," me packing a bag and leaving a house everyone else thought I was lucky to have. In my fridge now, leftovers are just food, no hidden folders, no secret stories. My mail lives in a neat stack on the counter, my name untouched by anyone else's pen. Brianna once told me not to waste what was left. She told me to finish the leftovers, but I finished the life she tried to shrink.